The world is ending, I think.
Good morning to you, and happy Monday.
It is Monday. It hailed at my house over the weekend. No
Nice.
damage, at least not at our house. But I figured the world is ending, and that's how it's going to start.
Hmm. It was over 50 degrees yesterday, although it rained the entire day, and it is also going to be over 50 today.
Yeah, you're probably going to have gorgeous weather. Fortunately, we had it on Sunday, and it got up to about 60. It was a 3. I was trying to do the math there. I think it was like 17 Celsius, something like that,
Hmm.
for all the
Nice.
communist
All
units
those
out there.
metric nerds,
Yep, yep.
Euro trash.
Yeah, definitely never got them to the moon. That's all I got to say. At least not yet.
Wow.
Actually, probably
That's
did. But
interesting.
I'm just saying.
Sure.
You
The
know what
fact
else
that,
is?
the United States is like Asimov's Foundation series, and we're now looking back at the great civilization we used to have is,
Hmm.
ironic and whatever.
Much like a Notre Dame fan, I like living in yesterday rather than the present. So, just trying to, anger everybody who might be listening to this today.
How'd the Bengals do this weekend? Did they play? Are they still in the league? Do they let Ohio teams
I
participate?
don't think we need Paul for the remainder of the show.
I
He's,
actually have no idea. I just
no, they
was
lost.
playing the odds on that one.
Well, I mean, their season's over. The quarterback is out. He
Yeah.
tore a ligament
That
in his
worked out. That
thumb.
worked out great for the Eagles last year. I mean,
Yeah, I kind of did. But then the other problem is AJ Green is now, I think, out for the season, which was so you have your quarterback and your best receiver out, and then our
sure.
center got hurt, and so it's just kind of amateur football in Cincinnati, which is about par for the course.
I mean, how important is hiking, throwing, and catching a football
Yeah,
to the game? I mean, I don't know. I don't understand the problem.
yeah. Basically, everybody in that first touch series is all now hurt. So yeah,
Sorry. I've not really been following football that much this year, so I actually have no idea what's happening. But I'm
well,
sorry.
well here we are. Paul, so interesting post. I tossed it up on Petri this morning. You kind of had an
Hmm.
interesting one on Thurrott. Windows Core OS. I think 2019 is going to be a crazy year, especially build. So if you're thinking about going to build, you should go to build.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's going to be good. So there's this thing that's been floating around called Windows Core OS, but there's more specifically a thing been called Windows Lite. It was called Windows Lean at one
Mhm.
point, and I think I got it all figured out. This is how Microsoft's going to kill Chromebooks, Paul. This third time's the charm. Third, they've got it.
This I assume the article you're referencing that I wrote is the one where I said stuff like this is terrible,
Mhm.
and what Microsoft, So the way it's funny. Let's see, how do I frame this? Last Wednesday, I talked. I just off the cuff. People, kind of take you to task for ideas. We're just talking here, But I kind of said, given that Microsoft doesn't really play in the client platform business that much anymore, I mean, why not hand that off and just build
Mhm.
something on top of something else? And I used Linux as an obvious example. I'm like, the thing is, if this thing could just run Windows apps, what would the rest of this matter? Microsoft has
Yep.
had decades to figure out a way to either through virtualization and or containerization to make Win32 apps run in a safe manner on a more modern platform. Why haven't they done it?
Mhm.
I can only conclude they don't care. The evidence I used was things like Windows RT, Windows 10 on ARM to some degree, and of course Windows 10S and S mode, which are those things that do not run all Windows applications, right?
Mhm.
Like they run some weird subset of Windows applications, most of them meaning store apps, which has expanded, granted, to include other types of things than just UWP apps. But, Windows is Windows. I mean, and I guess the thing I was kind of coming to is like, what makes Windows Windows? Like,
Yeah.
what's the thing that makes it Windows? It is literally the ability to be that thing that Bill Gates described, the most versatile software ever created, to run all Windows apps. When Windows NT was being developed, it wasn't Windows NT, it was NT. And Microsoft, Bill Gates really said, you need to run Windows apps. That has to be part of this. It has to look like Windows. It has to run those apps. And it did. It ran DOS and Windows 3X apps when it first came out. When Windows NT became Windows, that was part of the deal. The driver models had a line, the the app platform, which was Win32 at the time, had to align.
Mm-hmm.
If you wrote one to one, it had to work on the other. And that's the thing I think Microsoft has kind of lost. You know, they're pushing forward with this new stuff, but they're leaving behind that important bit, which is there's billions of people using Windows. They're all using those apps that Microsoft is throwing under the bus, using this thing that you are now describing. What do you call it? WinOS Core or WinCore?
So WinCore OS is kind of like the foundation, but the version that they're building out that everyone's going to actually care about is called Windows Lite right now. Lite.
Let me guess what they're dropping off to make it more lightweight. Let me just go out on a limb. That thing I just described. The ability to run all Windows.
This will be interesting. And there's two major things, and I mean major things, that need to be known about this. One, I don't think it's not going to look like Windows 10. Like, it's not going to look like the Windows that you know and love and have known.
I actually think that's important.
Right? I do. The other
Windows
thing,
RT, right, was goofy because it looked like Windows.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would go to the web or whatever and try to download Chrome, and it'd be like, I have no idea what this thing is. You can't do this.
Yep. So it's not going to look like Windows. And then the other important thing is it may not be called Windows. Which,
again, I actually do approve of that. Let me ask you this question. So there's like this. There's still this group. Group is the wrong term, but I feel like there are enough people at Microsoft who still believe that the company is a player in this world, and that if they just put something out, maybe this time it will stick, even though there's zero evidence to support this notion. In fact, there's tons of evidence to support the opposite of this notion. If this thing is what I think it is, which is like a lightweight platform that runs store apps, right?
And
including
PWA.
PWA, yep. What you've just described basically is something that is less than Chrome OS, because Chrome OS runs PWAs and web apps of all kinds, and it also runs Android apps, the biggest app market on the planet. So I just literally, I haven't written about this yet, but there was some usage statistics that just came out, and it was funny. I think it was Greg Kaiser wrote that Microsoft overall was able to keep its web browser usage share flat in the most recent month, I think it was, which has not been the case historically. It's been going down. And the way that happened was that IE usage for some reason went up, and Edge usage, of course, flatlined again, because that's what it does. It has something like 3.4% usage share. It's non-existent. Even like Firefox is used by 3 to 4 times as many people. I forget the exact number, but it's pointless. And now what you're describing is, if I'm not mistaken, that in a laptop. Okay.
Yep.
I don't mean to be a dick about this, but seriously.
No, but I mean, this is so the interesting, the fun parallel here, Paul, is so it took him 3 tries to get Surface right, and it was on the third day, if you will, since we're in the Christmas season, on the third day, or I guess that's Easter, but they changed the aspect ratio, right?
It's true.
And then that worked, and so now maybe if they change the name and the look, it'll work.
Yeah, it won't. This thing faces the problem that Windows Phone faced, except that it's worse. And what I mean is the question for Windows Phone, as Stephen Elop so eloquently put it, was, is there room in the market for a third player? The answer ultimately was no, right? And it's not just Windows Phone that failed. Everything else failed too, like RIM with BlackBerry most notably. But I guess the only possible concession I would make here is that Microsoft only controls one market when it comes to client computing, and that's the PC market. And this thing, as yet another attempt to kind of come out with a lighter, more modern, more secure, more reliable, whatever platform, is targeting that market. And I'm sure we will see, as we see in the Chrome OS world, laptops and detachables and convertibles, things that flip around on the screen and all that kind of thing. But, ultimately, this is the question. This is the thing. I mean, we had this conversation with Windows Phone. We've had it about Andromeda, which has never appeared. I don't care how cool you think this thing is, whether it has a foldable or a dual screen configuration or whatever it is, if there are no apps, it just is pointless.
So you bring up another interesting point there, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when Microsoft launches a new OS, such as Windows 8, they have some sort of hero hardware. With Windows 8, we had the Surface RT, which was neither hero nor whatever.
Yep.
With Windows 10, we had this thing right here, which is the Surface Book 2. Mm-hmm. And with Windows Lite, provided all plans stick to current agenda, when it launches, which should be, we should get our first kind of flavor of it at Build, I believe, 2019. Later in that year.
So probably next year, like next fall.
Yes. We are going to see some hero hardware, and I believe it's the larger Andromeda device, which is called Centaurus.
Okay. And this Centaurus device is a detachable.
So think of Andromeda, which there's a couple things we got to talk about with Andromeda too. A lot of people keep saying
it's changed completely.
Well, kind of not. So Andromeda is still alive and whatever inside of Microsoft. That device, it's not on. Somebody said it was on hold. I was told it is not on hold. It's just they just haven't assigned it a release date. So it's just in active development, but it's not scheduled to come to market yet, if you will. And so there's a larger device called Centaurus, which looks exactly like it. It's sort of a modular PC, if you will. It's got a display. You could put two displays together. You could put a display in a clipboard or whatever the hell you want to. You could attach bounty paper tails if you really wanted, I think. But I believe it's going to...
So in other words, what you're describing is something that's a little bit like the clipboard part of the Surface Book 2. Mm-hmm. And in the case of that computer, one of the things you can connect to it is a hardware keyboard. Well, that is the only thing you connect to that comes with it. But you're saying that this thing could have alternative connections, one of them being a second screen.
Yep.
That would facilitate this courier-style Andromeda thing that people have been dreaming for some reason, because, whatever. Anyway, I still question the point of it. But that's interesting.
The point may be that it's a showcase for Windows Lite.
Well, Surface Laptop was a showcase for Windows 10s, and I'd have to go back and look at the actual details, but I believe that device has sold approximately 17 units. And
the Surface Laptop,
it's amazing how poorly it's. I love it. I mean, it's literally one of my favorite computers ever.
I'm done pretty
apparently
well,
on an island all by myself.
No, I don't think you're on an island. I think it's done.
But if you look at the usage stats, it's nothing. Even Surface Go has sold better already than both Surface Laptop generations combined.
Well, you're comparing apples and laptops here. Well, first off, Surface Go sold 40,000 to one customer. So don't.
Yeah. Okay. Well, but that's still 47. I mean, it's still 40,000 units. I mean, whatever. But Surface devices sell in small numbers. It's fine. I'm just saying. Look, Surface Laptop, Surface Go, Surface Book, whatever. The one thing that these computers benefit from is that they're running Windows, and that means you can run everything, right? Surface Laptop, the numbers on that one. I mean, as shipped originally, could not run everything, and people could just switch away from that. I think the problem here is, if I understand it, is there's no out on this thing, right? And so Lite, or whatever we're going to call it, is Chrome. It's Chrome OS. It's Microsoft's version of Chrome OS, and it's really interesting because the PC market embraced Chrome OS largely because of Surface, right? Because they were so mad that Microsoft got into the PC business that they were looking for a plan B in case everything went south. And every PC maker on earth, every major PC maker sells Chromebooks now. It's interesting, I don't know if Chromebook had somehow sold that well on its own, like organically, it kind of makes sense that Microsoft would come out with their own thing to offset this, right? They did this with netbooks, when Linux became a thing very briefly. That thing just came up on our site this morning, actually.
Yep.
I don't see the point here. I just don't think this is. I don't know. It's not more than Chrome OS. That's the problem, right? Yeah. It's not more.
Well, with the qualification of we may not have the full story yet, but I mean, I'm pretty confident what I just explained and wrote. And
okay, I mean, I guess it would run on lower end hardware, and that would also bring. I mean, there'll be premium hardware. I'm sure the Microsoft thing will be a premium device, expensive, et cetera. But Windows is a big pig of a program. There's no doubt about it. And on a low-end machine, that's one of the things with like even Surface Go with 4 gigabytes of RAM. It's like this is not optimal, and this is in many ways a modern version of a netbook. This system would probably run. Hopefully, it has to. Would run better on those systems. That's one of the things that's really neat about a Chromebook is you could buy something based on like a Celeron with 2 gigs of RAM and a tiny, MMC style storage device, and it runs great. It's just, it is lightweight for whatever reason.
Yeah. So we will see. We will see build. Have they announced build yet? 2019. I know they did Ignite. But
yeah, that's what I was just thinking. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Hopefully they have it the same week as.
But build ended, and they were kind of talking about it.
Yeah, because remember, they'll probably have build the exact same week as Google I/O, like last year.
Yeah, smart.
Yeah,
because nothing ever happens to Google I/O, so might as well just stack them up.
You got anything else there, Paul? You're.
I'm just confused by this.
It's okay. It's okay to be confused.
Well, I'd like to get past the, there's a mentality among enthusiasts, I think, where it's like, that'd be so cool. Would it be cool if Microsoft, wouldn't it be cool? And I don't think that's how business occurs. There has to be a value to it. There has to be a point to it, not just for Microsoft's, not just for Microsoft, but for its customers, right?
Yep.
I'm not sure that it makes sense for Microsoft to bother with this kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong, because I do struggle with thinking about, okay, what is wrong with Windows 10 Home today?
Right.
I mean,
right.
It's
honestly, if Edge has certainly brought its share of interesting features. I don't want to call them innovations too much, but it's got some interesting stuff going on. But would the world be better served by a little, dialogue and setup that comes up and says Chrome, Firefox, Opera? Which one do you want? Which ones do you want? That's the world has chosen.
Yep.
I don't think we get this back. I don't think that's how this works.
Well, it's been about 2 years since Microsoft has launched a new version of Windows RT.
It doesn't run Windows apps, yes.
So it's,
yeah, for sure. The other thing is, this in many ways is an implicit statement on Microsoft's part that Chrome OS is perhaps even more popular than some of us may understand. That they see indications from their PC Maker partners, from their customers, especially in education, but also in business, that are, Microsoft is obviously, and their resellers and their partners are in discussions with these companies all the time. And they've probably seen some indication. It's like, no, we want something less complex, less expensive, that's going to last, that's reliable and blah, blah, blah. And let's face it, this hasn't exactly been the greatest year for Windows, and I get it. But, again, I hate to be the broken record, but I'm not sure this solves the problem for users, and I don't think Microsoft making it is enough for it to be successful.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack here, and we will see how this kind of plays out. There's a lot running through my head, notably one, which I'll probably write up in some capacity here. What's going to happen faster, iOS scale up to desktop functionality, or for Windows to scale down to essentially modern OS functionality, whatever you want to call it. Same with Chrome OS, you can bundle that in there. Like, you've got those two platforms trying to raise their game, if you will, and Microsoft is trying to hack away things to get to that level. It's going to be who gets there first and better.
I think Chrome OS has already done it. I think Chrome OS has won that battle. Apple moves very slowly, and they're very stubborn about certain things. This is the company that made fun of hybrid computers, and that's what they're selling the iPad Pro as. This is the company that told you it's awkward to sit there and point at a screen and your arm hurts, but they don't offer you a pointing device on the iPad Pro. added a bunch of features to iOS a year ago that made the iPad Pro make more sense. Then they came up with a new iPad Pro and they added nothing on the software side that made it make any more sense. Like they went nowhere with the software. Those guys are moving really slow. Google, by comparison, is moving very aggressively. Microsoft has made moves, by the way, and I talked about some of them: Windows 10 ARM and Windows RT before that, and Windows 10 SRS mode are pushes toward this future that Microsoft sees very clearly, but is not taking the right steps, I think, to get there. So that unfortunately, when you do that, all you've ended up doing is treading water. You've had many backslides, and I think it prevents you from getting to the point where you needed to be. Chrome OS is still kind of a mess. This is something I'm going to continue writing about. I reviewed that Acer Chromebook that's a convertible PC, and it's really an interesting mix of functionality and problems. Like just something goofy like there's a Word app for Android and there's a Word app for the web. Which one do I use and why? And how is it better? And which one gets better battery life? And there's a lot of confusion there. But you know what? They're pushing forward, and I think their model is making sense. And the reason, if you don't believe that or don't agree with that, if Microsoft is making what you're describing, then Microsoft agrees with it because they're doing it too. But they just don't have that mobile platform to fall back on.
Right.
I hope their bet on PWA makes sense. Because I don't know what else would make this thing make any sense.
Yeah, it'll be. I'm sure we'll learn more as time goes on.
Yeah.
You got anything else?
This is a real fog of war thing. I'm sorry.
No.
No, I finally got that HP printer review up. It's actually real. I think this device is actually super interesting. I should have my OnePlus 6T review up soon. And I'm working on a bunch of other stuff. I don't want to give any of it away, but I'll have a boot camp thing up probably today as well. What about you?
A bunch of things. Well, sort of, not really. Two things, I guess. So I have an Xbox post written. I need to get it proofed and then published for the Route side of the house. I think it's kind of interesting. It bundles together all of Microsoft's strategy to kind of win the year ahead in the next generation in gaming. It's their strategy, whether or not it works out. And it kind of compares to some of the things we know Sony is doing. There's a little bit of scoopiness in there as well about some of the Scarlet stuff that kind of founded the reason why I started to write that post. So hopefully, if that doesn't go out today, I'll definitely go out tomorrow. I got a little busy this morning writing about Windows Lite. That wasn't on the agenda initially. And the other thing is the physical copy. Hopefully the last proof should arrive at my house tomorrow. And as long as it does, then I can hit approve, and then that will be available. So
did you try to fix that picture, or was this for some other reason? Yeah, the picture.
There were two. I tried to fix that picture. I also went through and made some additional formatting changes. There were some spots, and it's not perfect where you have an image, and then it gets bumped to the next page, and you have to decide, it's like, okay, do you want a small gap on the previous page or a smaller image? And just little stuff like that. So hopefully that shows up. Well, it will show up tomorrow. Hopefully it shows up and it's all nice and good.
Right.
So,
good.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Well, that wraps it up for today, folks. Should be an interesting week. Microsoft's Connect conference is happening this week. There's the Qualcomm Snapdragon thing happening this week. And a whole bunch of other good stuff. So we'll catch you right back here tomorrow.